hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're going straight to hell.
I hate to break it to you, but I made a deal with my gentleman caller. You know, Satan. And we came to a new agreement. If you kill me, when you die, you're the one going to hell.
Hey guys, Ryan and Gaj here, and we're back breaking down another episode of Preacher. This is the season finale, The Light Above.
But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed these videos. We're also breaking down Castle Rock, so be sure to check that out.
Now guys, obviously there are a ton of season finale spoilers in this video. You do not want to watch this before watching the season finale, so go do that, then come right back here. All right guys, so the season finale starts up with a flashback of young Jesse in Angelville, and we get some more context into the relationship, the complicated relationship between him and Grandma.
Yeah, like we see him as a kid with God in his room at the beginning, and then Satan at the dinner table, which to me was almost a symbolic gesture of the duality of good and evil that Jesse's always struggled with, which also made him the perfect host for Genesis.
Right, that perfect amount of evilness, that perfect amount of good inside of him, so he's the perfect host to keep Genesis inside of him.
Yeah.
You still think like a Custer, that if you do just enough right and not too much wrong, that there's still hope for you.
Now we also find out that Jesse ultimately wants to leave Angelville, and he has that really awkward conversation with Grandma, like, hey, I really want to go out, like far away, like not just to the movies.
Yeah.
I want to leave, and she's not buying it at all.
No, not at all. Like she was okay with a day, but for a week or longer, or as he wanted for good, she wasn't having that.
Yeah, and this is a little deviates from the comics because he kind of wanted to go spend time with Tulip, a young who they met as kids back in Texas. So he wanted to go spend time with Tulip and kind of catch up with her. And then we find out that he didn't like the response from Grandma, so he eventually attempts to kill her in her sleep.
Yeah, except he couldn't do it. Just as we saw earlier, the whole duality of him with good and evil. The good side won out, and he couldn't quite kill her. He couldn't bring himself to do it at that moment.
And I think another good point here is that the fear of hell. I think she instilled a lot of fear in Jesse of what would happen to him if he did something as horrific as murder somebody, and especially his own grandma in her sleep. The one thing I really did enjoy about this opening sequence was right before the title sequence pops up, you see, past Jesse and present Jesse kind of walking past each other. The color grading from the past and then the present. And he's basically, regrets that he didn't take action sooner, basically.
But he's got his chance now.
Should have killed her.
Yeah, well, now's your chance.
So Jesse's back in Angelville, as we mentioned, and he has the power of Genesis with him. So he definitely has the advantage, let's say.
Oh yeah, like they didn't even stand a chance when he's using his power. Like TC was completely caught off guard and had no idea why he was just obeying every command.
I was kind of surprised that he wasn't given the heads up. They're like, hey guys, Jesse's coming back and he has this power. Grandma knows about Genesis, so they should be more kind of ready for this.
Yeah, we've seen how the Grail will put on those special headphones and ways to prepare to fight Jesse.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Grandma, who knew Jesse was coming to kill her, I don't know, it just seemed like she was either overconfident or was just convinced that Jesse couldn't do it.
Ill prepared for Jesse and Genesis. He has TC shoot himself in the foot. And it was a touching moment, kind of, because you knew that Jesse wasn't going to just murder TC right there.
Yeah, like as horrible as a person as TC was, he didn't hate him completely.
Yeah. Now when it comes to Jody though, there was a little bit of a one-on-one showdown in the tombs. Now I thought it was fitting that Jesse didn't use Genesis to kill either TC or Jody.
Yeah, like in the comics, when Jody and Jesse faced off, they actually went, fist to fist and actually dueled it out. So while the tombs were new, it was an appropriate venue for them to actually duke it out for one last time.
Totally, and I think it proves that Jesse wants to prove that he can overcome that and like beat them fairly. And also there is a certain type of, I think, respect between them, as complicated as the relationship is, that he wants to, you know, get revenge for what he did to his father and mother. So Jesse's not about to take any shortcuts and use the power of Genesis in order to kill them. He wants to make sure that he can do it himself.
And it was nice to see him finally overcome him in the end, as he finally overpowered Jody, and Jody had a weird fatherly moment with him, where he said, "I'm proud of you, boy."
Yeah. So after defeating Jody, TC also opts to kind of die in the tombs with him. Jesse wants to blow the whole thing up, and TC, it was pretty touching. He doesn't really know any different lifestyle, so he'd rather die than live, go freely somewhere else. So Jesse blows them up in the tombs.
Yeah, it was actually kind of touching to see him offer TC a chance to leave.
Yeah.
And TC opting to stay because, like you said, he didn't know any better. Like, that's just the life he knew, and the life, as wicked as it was just what he was accustomed to.
Yeah, how did you feel overall about these two players in the large scheme of Preacher, of TC and Jody?
I like that they made TC a little more relatable. Like, while he was bad, they gave him more of a softer touch. And I've been kind of, pro and against it throughout the season. But I think for this last moment, it really humanized him a bit more and actually cared for the character.
Totally. It was kind of hard to see them go, as bad and awful as they are. It wasn't easy to see these two go. I think they were really strong characters this whole season.
Agreed. Jody was the one where I kind of wish he was a little more evil or a little more softer, because I wasn't quite sure where he stood. Because even when he was talking to Featherstone about Tulip, he almost seemed like he cared about her, but there's no reason to.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that overall, Angelville was the strongest part of the season, obviously, and it's gonna be hard, should we get a season 4, to not have Angelville included anymore, with all these people like kind of off the board now.
Yeah, like there were so many strong characters introduced, and it was such a strong arc that really, while it went on the whole season, kind of kept you engrossed in that town and what was going on. Like, I personally love the whole Cassidy Icarius bit, but Angelville had the strongest set of characters.
Right, and very deeply rooted in the comic books. So if you enjoyed the comic books, I'm sure that was a fun part of the season for you as well. So after disposing of Jody and TC in the tombs, Jesse finally gets his shot at Grandma. He's waited all these years to finally get his moment to get revenge. He's shocked by the, quote, new deal that she's made with Satan.
Yeah, he was caught a little off guard by that, and just like we saw when he was a kid, he's still a little scared of hell, and he couldn't bring himself to kill her right at that moment, but instead forced her to get rid of the soul so that she would just die slowly. Yeah,
so really smart move on Jesse's part. He forces her to get rid of all those souls so she cannot, live another 100 years. He also forces her, using Genesis, forces her to break the blood pact that she has over him, as well as the control over Tulip. So Tulip's safe, and then ultimately Jesse decides, hey, I can't have any more regrets. I cannot leave Angelville without making sure that Grandma, you are no longer here.
Yeah, it was a very different turn from the comics, where the comics, it was Tulip who gave the final blow and actually burned the house down. And I kept waiting for the house to burn down since it was such a symbolic gesture of the confinements that Jesse had. But it was still a nice way to finish off Grandma.
All right, so long Angelville. Now over on the route to hell. Remember, the Nazis intercepted that bus as it's making its way to hell, and we basically predicted what was gonna happen next.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no way that was gonna keep them down. Like, both of them are just standing tall, unfazed, slowly walking their way over, and
as well organized and resourced as the Nazis are with that tank, they stood no chance against the Saint of Killers and the Angel of Death. They're really, literally mowing down all of them in a really fun sequence right there. And then there was a really cool kind of hand-to-hand combat sequence inside the bus.
Yeah, like not just Tulip, but even Eugene got a couple good shots in on Hitler. Things I've never thought I'd say. But it was cool watching Tulip actually go hand-to-hand with the Nazi with a windshield wiper.
Yes.
And actually like besting him.
Tulip is so badass that she can use just random parts of cars in order to beat up Nazis. Now, a very significant moment occurs between the Angel of Death and the Saint of Killers. the Angel of Death just straight up mocks the Santa Killers and his daughter's death. Not a good move.
No, I don't care how strong you think you are. You might be an Angel of Death, but you don't do that to the Santa Killers. Like, that is one dude that will F you up.
Yeah, totally. So he can't immediately respond to her because the tank runs him over. But eventually he's able to fire off around the tank somehow.
It looked like he used his knife, heated it, and somehow injected it into the gasoline tank.
Yeah, anyways, fires around towards the Angel of Death, but God shows up and freezes everything.
Yeah, he freezes everything, stops it, says he's a loving God yet again, and saves Tulip.
Yeah, saves Tulip and offers her a deal, basically that he will lift the family curse off of the O'Hares, and all she has to do is keep Jesse away from him.
Yeah, this reminded me more of the scene when he first resurrected Tulip in the comics, and it felt like it was a little belated, but now he's having that same moment with Tulip, just in a different way.
Right. So Tulip actually decides not to take the deal, and she wants to have free will play its course and not have any deals with God. Now, she's able to leave, but Hitler and Eugene have to go with the Santa Killers.
Yeah, they're still sent to hell, and only Tulip is the one saved at this moment.
So Hitler and Eugene are going back down to hell thanks to the Saint of Killers, but before he does that, he makes sure that the Angel of Death doesn't basically mock him ever again. He rips her eyes out.
Yeah, and now she looks just like she did in the comics, like with the same eye, or lack thereof, eyes.
Yeah.
And it was just a perfect little reference to it.
Now, it didn't actually go down that way in the comic books, but the character at least looks, as an Angel of Death would look without any eyeballs. Later on in the episode, we find ourselves back in hell with the Saint of Killers, approaching Satan and letting him know that he's not cool with all the rules being broken.
Yeah, he let him know ultimately by killing him.
Which happens in the comic books, although much earlier in the books, but we knew this moment was coming from the get-go.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to actually see that nod finally delivered.
Yeah.
Because we kept waiting to see if they're going to deviate from that or not. But now Satan's dead, and something different is Hitler is now the lord or the ruler of hell, if you will.
It actually is pretty fitting that Hitler ends up behind the desk at the end, and he still has his uniform on from the sandwich shop, but now he is running hell, and the Angel of Death is working for him, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure why she was so willing to obey him right away, but it's Hitler,
That's strange. I really like the touch of when the Santa Killers shot Satan, and then the bats just crawl out of his skull.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was creepy.
Son of a...
And as we're leaving hell, we also realize that Eugene is not over what Jesse did to him by ultimately sending him to hell in the first place. He's still pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah, I don't know if he still believes God has a plan for him after everything he watched, but he does know that Jesse's alive and he wants to find him.
And if we should get a season 4, you better believe that Eugene will be looking for Jesse Custer.
Oh yeah.
Now, over in New Orleans, Cassidy is trying to get out of a pretty bad predicament. He's nailed to the pool table and basically has to talk Icarius into letting him down. He does a really good acting job here.
He does. He convinced Icarius that he's willing to repent and kind of see his ways and be on his side.
Now, what Icarius doesn't know is that Cassidy had reached out to Mrs. Rosen, turned her, and gave her a little evidence that, everyone that was taking their flights are no longer with us.
Yep, and she took care of the rest. The moment she knew that, she converted the rest and they were ready to converge and get on the traitor.
Very good strategy because Icarius is too strong for a one-on-one fight. But if you turn the entire crew into vampires, then it's a little more even. They can overpower Icarius and then they have a big feast.
But first, dinner time.
Now, we all knew Icarius was not gonna make it.
Yes.
In the comics, we saw him pinned to the chapel, we see him actually burn up, and that's how he at his end. But in the TV show, it's actually almost a darker turn that they took with the way they all feasted on him and just ate him up.
Yeah. And then we get the return of Party Hoover.
Hoover.
Yes, Vampire Hoover is back. And right when I saw this, I immediately was like, uh-oh, this is not good for them. I knew that as much as you and I love Party Hoover, Vampire Hoover, I knew that there was some reason why the Grail sent him back there and that it was not gonna be good for them.
Yeah, if we hadn't seen the shot of him going back to the Grail, maybe there's a chance Party Hoover would have stayed.
Yeah.
But the moment he went back, we knew that they couldn't let all these vampires stick around.
So the episode's called The Light Above, and maybe some of it's referencing not only to heaven and God, but the literal light above, because I guess like half of the house was ripped off.
Yeah.
And all of the vampires that don't have an umbrella are burned alive.
Yeah, it was kind of nice to see Hoover actually save Cassidy, though. Not only to use as leverage, but also as a thank you for helping him in his predicament earlier.
No, that's a good point. It was not only, obviously they wanted to save Cassidy and use him as imprison him. So, but I also believe that Hoover, felt like he owed that, and he did save his life. But ultimately, he gets to accomplish two things, right? He gets to save his life, and then also bring him back to the Grail.
The benefits are great.
And that brings us to the Fortress of Masada. And if you read the comic books, then you're well aware of the headquarters of the Grail, the world headquarters.
Yeah, and here we see Cassidy imprisoned. And we know that Tulip and Jesse have to find their way there, but not quite sure how they're gonna get there.
Yeah, if there's definitely gonna be an arc about this in season 4, obviously to go hunt down and find where Cassidy was taken. We also get a shot of the Seraphim, another angel up above Cassidy in chains, which happens to be, I believe, the father of Genesis.
Correct. He was the one that bore the child with the demon that he was tempted with, that created Genesis, that's when God flew heaven and what set everything into motion here.
So we know that the TV show is at least acknowledging that the Grail has information about how Genesis was created and why they're so kind of in tune with what the reach of Genesis and what it really means for the world.
Right.
We also get a reference to another character that we hope might show up for season 4.
Yes, we'll be seeing Frankie Toscani, aka Frankie the Eunuch, Unocchio. If you know him from the comics, he is the one who will be torturing Cassidy, which we know Hairstar mentioned there is a torture in mind for this job.
Yeah, they're gonna try to get as much information as they can out of Cassidy and also ultimately lure Jesse out there. And we also learn that Hairstar doesn't want him to be the Messiah anymore. He literally just wants to torture and kill Jesse whenever he can.
I'm going to kill him.
Love it. The great chess match for world domination continues.
Now, before the end of the episode, we also had one more death. Hoover. Hairstar got rid of Hoover by just taking off his hat.
Man, Party Hoover was just...
I'm so bummed that they got rid of him. A long list of deaths in the season finale. They killed a whole bunch of people. We have Grandma, Jody, TC, Akarius, Satan, all the Children of Blood minus Kevin and Mrs. Rosen, all those Nazis, and of course we just mentioned Hoover. Any surprises out of all those, that long list?
I think Hoover was the one that shocked me the most, just because he survived it all, he killed off the rest of the Children of Blood, and he had told Hairstar before he was a vampire.
Right.
But I guess he thought he was joking.
And he did a really good job, right? He delivered Cassidy to them, like, why did you kill Hoover?
I'm still convinced he's coming back. I think just like they did with Humperdew, I think there's gonna be a clone of Hoover. Except it won't be Party Hoover, but it'll be Hoover.
Awesome, a clone of Hoover. Guys, that's one of the many predictions that we have for season 4. Let us know in the comments below what predictions you guys might have. We're gonna put together a video next week, I think, on everything that we want in the next season. So be on the lookout for that and hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you thought of the season finale.
Cool, see you guys.
See you guys.